performance.
that people didn't expect. What was your reaction to the
Beautiful
bout?
performance. You know what? Throughout, you know, the couple months before the fight, we always, myself, Pita, and even Mikey, we always said, you know what? We think Crawford could pull it off. We were not betting on it. I never bet on it because obviously Canelo just the bigger, stronger guy. So we knew it wasn't going to be easy. We knew it was going to be, but we did give Crawford a shot of pulling it off. And then the day of the fight, I wasn't there, but I did a talk show with a bunch of.
Hey, I saw that. I saw you changed your pick.
And I said, look,
you did.
Crawford by decision.
Right.
They asked me, give us your final. I said, Crawford by decision. I talked to Bomac that Thursday because I was in Vegas, and Bomac had somebody in that same card on the Thursday before the fight. And we talked. He felt very confident about the training camp, about how camp went, but motivated the shape that he was in. So I said, you know what, Crawford by decision, and he did exactly what Bomac was telling me about. He boxed beautiful. He even stood in front of him to exchange and landed the better punches. So that tells you a lot.
Crazy scenario. I mean,
Alvaro.
when you watch, we normally don't see Canelo Alvarez in fights like that where he shows such frustration on display, right? You don't really see him
because he's never been there. He's never done.
When Robert Garcia speaks on boxing, people listen. He's been in the corner for countless champions, and when he breaks down what went wrong for Canelo Alvarez in his shocking loss to Terence Crawford, you can tell he's speaking from deep experience. Garcia's words carry the weight of both respect and honesty. He didn't hold back on Canelo's performance, and his take might just be the reality check that Alvarez and his team need if they truly want redemption in a rematch. First off, Garcia admitted that while he and his brothers, Pita and Mikey Garcia, always gave Crawford a chance to pull off the upset, they weren't fully betting on it. Why? Because Canelo was the bigger, stronger man. On paper, that size and strength were supposed to be enough to keep Crawford from dominating. But, as Garcia explained, Crawford didn't just win. He boxed beautifully, standing in front of Canelo, trading shots, and still landing the cleaner, sharper punches. That's what impressed him the most. Crawford fought Canelo on his terms at moments and still came out on top. Now, here's where Garcia's insight really cuts deep. He pointed out something that most fans felt watching the fight: the frustration on Canelo's face. We're used to seeing Alvarez calm, patient, and calculating. But against
that's
Crawford,
what he needs. That's what he needed, but he didn't do. He didn't even try. The thing is that what we've seen with, he's Mexican. What we've seen with Mexican fighters like Chavez, who was having a hard time against Mayweather. Chavez, who was having a hard time against Meldrick Taylor. But he kept going. He kept trying and, missing, getting hit, whatever, but he kept going, cutting the ring. He had that mentality, that heart of a warrior. Barrera did it a few times. Morales did it a few times. Just to mention those. Marquez coming from behind, or a very close, tough fight against Pitbull, Diaz, Juan, what do they call him?
Baby Bull.
The Baby Bull. I said Pitbull. Baby Bull. But, never gave up, kept going, kept doing it. That's what Canelo missed, man. Even if he would have lost, but never changed the game plan, never tried anything different. Always kept the same rhythm, even though he was losing, still looking for that left of the body with no, from far, opening up, keeping his chin up. He's never been in those situations, so maybe that hurt him.
The next morning I talked with Fernando Vargas.
Yes.
And Fernando Vargas said, that he's had so much success in the past in his life. Maybe
there were moments where he looked stuck, trapped, out of ideas. Garcia compared it to the great Mexican warriors of the past: Julio Cesar Chavez, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez. Fighters who, even when down on the scorecards, kept pushing, kept cutting off the ring, kept throwing punches until the very last second. That warrior instinct, Garcia suggested, was missing from Canelo on that night. And that's a powerful critique, because for all of Canelo's success, Garcia feels he hasn't shown that desperate, backs-against-the-wall style that made the legends beloved. Even Fernando Vargas, when he was hurt against Felix Trinidad, still kept coming forward, dropped Trinidad later in the fight, and showed heart even in defeat. Garcia's point is simple. Mexican fans don't just want victories. They want to see that warrior spirit, the willingness to leave it all in the ring, win or lose. Instead, Canelo stuck to a game plan that wasn't working. He didn't adjust. He didn't press with urgency. He kept looking for that left hook to the body from too far out, chin up, waiting for an opening that never came. And when you're fighting a technician like Crawford, waiting is exactly what he wants you to do. Garcia even suggested that maybe success itself has softened Canelo. Too much money, too much comfort, too much legacy already written. He's already cemented as one of the greatest of this era, one of the wealthiest and most accomplished fighters in boxing history. Garcia didn't say this to disrespect him. In fact, he called Canelo and Eddie Reynoso great people, great friends. But he acknowledged the reality.
He just didn't
Sometimes
care.
success...
Maybe there was
too comfortable.
A little bit
Look,
of...
bringing up Fernando Vargas, we're Mexican, but he's not born in Mexico, so I didn't mention him. But remember Fernando versus Trinidad? First round, Fernando gets dropped and hurt, but he still kept coming. Then a few rounds later, drops Trinidad. That's what Canelo's missing. That's what people want to see from Canelo. That's what Mexicans want to see from Canelo. Where you're losing, like the perfect example of Crawford. You're losing. Fucking cut the ring, throw more punches, get a little dirty if you can. To try to find a way. Chavez jumped to reach that right hand against Mayweather and fucking dropped him. You know what I mean? Because he just jumped. He was desperate to land that punch.
Right.
That's something Canelo has never showed us. Canelo has never had that. He's too comfortable. He's got too much money. He's accomplished so much. He's one of the biggest in history when it comes to accomplishments and money. His trainer, same thing, Eddie Reynoso. Great person, great friend that I could talk to, but he got too comfortable too. Both of them, they just got too comfortable, I think, and I don't blame them either. They've fucking done so well.
In a lot of large boxing circles, they're being called businessmen.
They are.
A lot of people are saying, hey, these are businessmen that happen to put fights on, but it's just not the same as it used to be. Where do you think Canelo goes from here? Obviously, there may be big fights still out there in the future. Who would you like to see him come back against?
Canelo's an athlete. Canelo's a great athlete.
Takes away the hunger that makes a fighter dangerous. That's why Garcia floated the idea of change. Not a complete split from Eddie Reynoso, but maybe adding a new voice to the team. Someone who can light that fire again, who can push Canelo out of his comfort zone. He compared it to a Rocky III moment. Canelo needs to be reminded of the hunger, the grit, the raw edge that makes champions truly great when tested. Because if he doesn't rediscover that, Crawford might just beat him again in the same way. But Garcia isn't writing Canelo off. Not at all. In fact, he strongly believes that in a rematch, with the right adjustments and the right mentality, Canelo has what it takes to beat Crawford. His size, his power, his chin, all of that is still real. The key, according to Garcia, is that Canelo can't respect Crawford's power too much. He needs to bite down, throw combinations, cut the ring, and keep pressing, even if it means taking some clean shots. Against a fighter like Crawford, waiting for the perfect punch is a death sentence. Pressure, persistence, and risk-taking could turn the tide in a rematch. Then there's Crawford's future. Garcia gave him all the credit in the world, calling him the first three-division undisputed champion, something nobody else has done. If Crawford retired today, Garcia said, he'd leave as a legend. But at the same time, the money on the table is too big to ignore. A rematch with Canelo could be massive, and for Crawford, it could be the defining stamp on his already historic career. Still, Garcia warned against Crawford biting off too much at higher weights. Fights at 168 against naturally bigger men don't make sense when you've already proven everything there is to prove. He dismissed the idea of Crawford fighting David Benavidez, saying that's a size mismatch that could damage his legacy. He also brushed off a move to fight Jermall Charlo, noting Crawford has nothing left to prove against him.
A very dedicated person. He's focused. He trains hard, but he needs that hunger. He needs that. I think I wouldn't mind. It wouldn't hurt. And I know that they're probably never gonna do it because they've been together so. But add somebody to their camp. Add somebody, a new voice.
Would
somebody
you invite Canelo down?
Somebody that's going to. No. Canelo's not gonna. Nobody's gonna invite Canelo over. Canelo's gonna bring them over to him. You know what I mean? And maybe that's. He's so powerful and so rich that's probably what would be the best thing for him to do is go out of your comfort zone, go somewhere where you're not gonna be the main guy, where there's other superstars. You know what I mean? Right. Maybe that. I don't know. I'm just trying to
a little bit of a Rocky III moment for him, where
kind of like that.
He kind of go train.
He needs to make a change. I think. I would love to see the rematch. I think in the rematch, if he comes back with the hunger that he needs, he could beat Crawford, because Crawford, is very talented, but I think Canelo could beat him. Canelo's strong, man. Canelo's strong. Canelo could take a good punch. So I think he could just go and don't respect his punch and throw punches even though you're gonna get hit, but don't give up. Keep going until you hit him.
What adjustments would you make if you were working with Canelo?
Well, look, it's hard to say because obviously, like I said, I'm not the one in camp, or I'm not the one trying to badmouth anybody, because they've accomplished so much together. But I think that there had to be a little more in the corner, a little more, where to a point where you're a little bit mad, come on, fucking do this, be a little more aggressive,
a little more passion.
Yes, they're too comfortable.
Coach, what do you think happens with Crawford next? Do you think that a lot of people have kind of been talking about, I've been hearing the murmuring about.
For Garcia, the smartest paths for Crawford are clear. Either take the rematch with Canelo at 168 or move down to 160 to chase history yet again, becoming undisputed in a fourth weight class. Both options add to his greatness without risking everything against the wrong opponent. In the end, Garcia's comments paint two very different pictures. For Canelo, it's about rediscovering hunger, changing the mindset, and proving to the world, and himself, that he's still that fighter who can dig deep when it matters most. For Crawford, it's about smart decisions, preserving a historic legacy, and choosing the right fights that cement his status as one of the greatest to ever step in the ring. And maybe that's why fans are already buzzing for a rematch. Because if Canelo comes back with fire, with adjustments, and with that warrior mentality, the second fight could look completely different. But if he shows up the same way, Crawford might just close the book on one of boxing's biggest stars. Either way, Robert Garcia's breakdown reminds us why boxing isn't just about skill and strength. It's about heart, hunger, and the choices fighters make when everything is on the line.
And maybe trying to unify or just take the belts from there.
Well, if he does that, that'd be fucking, look, he's already...
Crawford Janabek, what's that fight look like?
Crawford's already the first three division undisputed. So doing it one more time would be fucking unbelievable. Would be the best of all times, because he's already accomplished more than anybody else. But he's already done it that he doesn't have to do it anymore. He could just retire right now and say goodbye to boxing and be a legend. And I wouldn't be mad for him if he does something like that. But there's so much money out there. There's so many fights. A rematch with Canelo is huge. So I also can't, blame him for not making that money.
Everybody saw the headline that Turkey made the next morning with the thinking emoji saying, I wonder if David can make 168. I asked Bomac about it the next day. Bomac said, nah, we ain't interested in fighting.
I wouldn't do that either. There's no way. Crawford just got the biggest win in his career and one of the biggest wins in history. He doesn't need to go out there and risk. But it is too big, too strong. We don't want to see a champion do so much and accomplish so much and then end his career with a bad choice, a bad fight that he shouldn't take. I wouldn't do it.
Not a good matchup for Terence at all.
Not a good one for Terence.
Too big, too strong.
I think
David
there's,
on a different level.
there's so many